Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has hidden unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure, or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
Last year, my husband and I visited historical Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. I love history in general, but I especially love when history connects with genealogy. At Jamestown, I especially looked for Thomas West, Lord de la Warr, who arrived as governor of Virginia with supplies just as the colonists were abandoning the colony. The bay, the river, the Native American people, and the colony of Delaware were named after him. In Williamsburg, I delighted in standing at the House of Burgesses, where many of my ancestors came, representing their hometowns in the colonial and later state governments. I stood at the banks of the river at Yorktown, trying to picture how one of my ancestors felt as a drummer boy when the American victory led to the surrender by the British and the long war ended. But my favorite part about our trip was visiting a tiny church in Smithfield. There, under the floor of the church, lay one of my ancestors, Captain Joseph Bridger, who had founded and built that church. Other stories from my family genealogy encourage me. For example, one of my ancestors' brothers couldn't read, so he had his wife read him a portion of scripture every night, and he memorized it, and then preached it on Sunday at his church. Another story tells of one of my ancestors and his army pals from the Revolutionary War bringing their families to Kentucky and establishing a church, taking turns preaching until they acquired a regular pastor. I just love coming across the spiritual history of my family. So why am I sharing my family history with you? In reading the beginning of Matthew, I realized that Matthew wrote the gospel to the Jewish people, so he started with the genealogy of Jesus, from Abraham all the way through David, the exile in Babylon, to a carpenter in Nazareth. Of course, Matthew was proving that Jesus fulfilled the promises God gave Abraham and David, and that his genealogy through his adopted father Joseph gave him the right to rule as king over them, both physically and spiritually. But for the Jews, this genealogy gave them a personal connection to the Messiah. They would all be related to him somehow because they all knew their own genealogy. Many of them would have been connected with him through the line of Judah as well. Though this list of names might make us yawn and want to skip over it, I imagine this genealogy, as well as the one given in Luke, would have given the original Jewish readers quite a thrill, knowing exactly how they personally connected in their bloodline. As they read this list of ancestors, they would have vividly remembered the stories about how many of them walked with God, learned from Him, sinned, and received forgiveness, or how others disobeyed and had to live with the consequences of their rebellion. They would have seen faulty, sinful people who God redeemed, dysfunctional families that God used in spite of their sin to bring about His ultimate plan. And yes, even women, some even Gentile women, in the genealogy of the Messiah. This had to remind them that one day they too would take their places in a similar list, as will you and I. When our descendants look back on their genealogy, whether it's our children or grandchildren remembering us, or later generations, what legacy will we have left them? What kind of spiritual genealogy will we give them with our lives?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to share a treasure God has given you by doing an episode, please contact us. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you'll find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.